Alright, hey everybody. So, this is Ryan Miller. I am a recently graduated student of Full Sail University. I just got out of the final project and I wanted to talk just a little bit about what I did when I was in final project. It's a 5-month project and we make a game in that time. And I don't really have, a lot of time to tell you the entire game. I just want to talk a little bit about what I've done. Now, immediately looking and you're like, whoa, what's all these shiny lights and stuff? Don't worry about all that. I'm here really just to explain some of the code I've done. So quickly, I just want to mention that this game is a first-person shooter. So yes, I have guns, and naturally I need things to shoot, which are these enemies right here. And you're probably thinking, well, they don't look that exciting. They're just standing there. I have a debug key that I've enabled where they can, be told to stop, freeze, so I can walk around them and do what I need to do. And I'm going to start talking to you about some of the things I did for the AI and how they function. Alright, so I want to talk about the light AI first, and some of the stuff that I did to make them function. Now, for starters, they have a hierarchy, a chain. For instance, the class that the light mech is actually derives from a few other classes. So, like, the light mech derives from the mobile AI class, and the mobile AI class derives from the living AI class, and then so on and so forth. So, this benefit, the reason I chose that method was because I have a few different types of enemies and I wanted to be able to share some of their behaviors between, but allow for me to expand upon individual and unique behaviors. For starters, the light mech here, while he can move around, I actually have another enemy in the game, a turret, and it doesn't need to move around. So why would I have pathfinding, steering behaviors, things like that for a turret? It doesn't really need them. So what I did was I made all these different classes to permit each of them to simply call their parents function or to override that function if they wanted to do it. The light mech here, he simply, is able to move around, shoot, pathfind after you, of course, things of that nature. Something else I wanted to talk about a little bit was how they decide what to do. So they have a state-based decision tree, essentially. When he sees you, he goes into an attack state and starts shooting at you, as thus the name. Let me just go ahead and get rid of this guy over here before he causes trouble. Big guy, where are you? There you are. Slammed into a building trying to hit me. Alright, so he's dead now. Alright. So, when these guys run after you, they're not just going to drive straight at you and shoot. That was the first thing they did naturally. Once you actually stand here for a little bit, they'll decide, you know what, we got to get out of here. See what they just did there? They reposition. When I first made them, they were kind of boring because they stood there and just shot at you, and it's very easy to maneuver around them and just basically outwit them. Once we saw how basic that was, I went and decided with the team that it'd be better if they actually just reposition. I went through a couple of iterations on how they do that, but now essentially they will reposition to a nearby random location that is possibly not within view of you, but is very close to you. That's using just some simple vector math and then using their function to steer to that location. And so this permitted me to have, the behavior you see here where, yes, I see you, but in a second I won't see your friend and he might, get behind me and flank me. Go ahead and turn them off before they kill me, as you can tell by the damage on the screen. Another thing that they do is, right now, in their minds, they're attacking me. And I'm over here behind this building, so when I enable the AI again, right now, you're like, oh, they can't see me, so they've lost me, right? Well, as soon as they lose sight of the player, they actually get his location the moment that they lose sight of him, and they set that as a waypoint to go check out along their patrol path. So that means that the moment they lose sight of you, they're actually going to pathfind their way over to that last seen location and see if they can, find out where you went to. So right now, they'll come around this corner, and they spotted me, so back on to attacking me. Now, if I do make them lose sight of me, and then I'll go over here, I enabled and re-enabled their AI quickly. Now they're going to go and try to look for me, and they're going to lose sight of me. There's some audio and visual cues for that, particularly audio cues, and they're going to go back to the patrol path. Now, one of them is probably going to come find me, because I think his patrol path was over here. Yep, sure enough. His patrol path was over here. So the moment that he lost sight of me, they were over here looking for me, which is where I turned their AI on. And then they're like, oh, well, I guess lost target, might as well go back to our patrol path. So they pathfind back to the last location they were at on their patrol path to return to what they were doing. Now the other thing is, this guy found me, but this guy was starting to come after me too. See the direction he's looking? The reason is that when this guy spotted me, he has an invisible radius around him that he just sends out a message to anybody. Hey, any buddies out there? This guy's over here. Come help me shoot him. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate it right now because it takes a little bit of setup to get done. But say that there was an enemy all the way down in that hallway. Now, he's obviously not within the sphere of this gentleman here. So this guy right here, if he spots me and starts shooting at me, I'm not going to make his sphere huge because it would encompass the whole city. But at the same time, it's kind of weird if there's an enemy down there and he's looking towards me, or at least looking in my general direction, that he'd just ignore me while I'm here killing his friend. It's like, why doesn't he see me? Again, the same point, I don't want to make his visual range so large so he can see me across the city. So what I do is when an enemy sees you, he will send out a message to everybody within his radius, and he'll send out a message to every enemy in the level that's active and say, hey, see if you can see the player right now. So for one frame, it'll do a line cast to the player from every enemy, and if they see the player, they're going to go and attack him. Now the good news too is that I only send out these events when they change states. So it's not like every frame that the guy sees me, he's constantly sending out an event saying, hey, go and keep line casting to the player. That would, bog down the game. It's only when he was patrolling, like lost sight of me, and he's found me again. It's only when he's like, aha, there you are. So that's enough of these guys though. I'm gonna go and try to find a heavy and fight with him. Alright, so I just went ahead and spawned in one of our heavy mechs and froze him so that we won't have to deal with getting shot by him. Now the heavy mech follows similar stuff that the light mech does. He has a shotgun attack when you're close, which is pretty much the same as the player's shotgun. It's a shotgun. He's also got a rocket attack he fires at you when you're at long range. Now those are pretty basic attacks. We used him though with a few abilities to be the thing that will keep the player on their toes in the middle of a battle. He has three primary abilities. Those are the ability to fire a horizontal arc of rockets at you, so that you have to try and dodge to get out of the way, and it's actually quite difficult to not get hit by at least one of those little rockets. He has the ability to fire a barrage missile at you, which is like an artillery missile. So it launches up in the air and then burst fires a bunch of rockets down at the location you were standing. And he's got the ability to do a bull rush attack, which was absolutely necessary because every game that goes through the final project of Full Sail University tends to have some kind of bull rush attack. But more importantly, he started out only being able to use the shotgun and only be able to fire the rockets at you. We added those abilities, those three abilities in, to address different things that the player was doing, at least players that we saw play in our game were doing. For starters, the bull rush attack is necessary because most of the time the player will keep their distance. It's a shooting game where if you learn how to use your weapons at a distance rather well, the enemies really don't have much of a chance against you. So his bull rush attack permits him not necessarily to charge at you and hit you, because that's what he does do, but it doesn't really damage you a ton. But the problem is he gets up in your face. So now you have a guy with a shotgun and a rocket launcher in your face, blocking bullets and just killing you. The other ability that he has was that volley of rockets that he fires in a horizontal sweeping pattern. That was because a lot of the players naturally were sprinting around and trying to dodge. Even though if you keep sprinting you're not going to get killed by all the rockets, it meant that it would hit you, pester you, and keep your shields a little bit low, and keep you on your feet too, because if you don't get out of the way of all those rockets, you're going to die. Finally, the barrage rocket was because the player, again at a long distance, we didn't necessarily want to have the heavy mech bull rush all the time and charge towards the player. So this barrage attack was for if you get behind a building, or if you're just at a very far distance, behind some cover or next to something that gives you some cover, it flushes you out. It actually will display like impact warning on the screen when it happens and such. And then, the rest of his behaviors are pretty standard, just like the other light mech. He'll follow around he'll follow you around locations, trying to track to where he last saw you. He has a patrol pattern. Again, that's the whole point of me doing those base classes that he derives off of. So he can just troll because he's derived off something that can patrol. I'm gonna go ahead and activate him here and just show off some of his abilities real quick. Alright, so you hear a little warning sound telling you that he's going to be charging towards you. And if you don't get out of his way, then he's going to, you know, slam into you, damage your shield a little bit. There's another warning sound to show you those volleys of rockets, doing some damage. Now he's just doing a standard attack there. If you get too close, you get hit by that rocket. It's not going to go well for you, obviously. Alright, so got my butt handed to me. Just going to come back in here, freeze up the enemies, kill this guy off. Boom, gone. Kill this guy off. Alright, so I want to show you the last of his abilities, the barrage attack. He's probably going to do his bull rush right now. That's just his default for the first time he sees you, because usually it's, you know, you're far away from him. Now, the bull rush attack he can use at any distance. His barrage attack, though, he only uses when you're really far away from him. You see there, you know, the attack shoots up, comes down, doesn't really care if there's anything in the way. This volley attack he's doing, I showed you before, I just wanted to specify, it only happens when you're in, like, middle ground range. He's just trying to use that when you're close enough that you might be strafing around him. Here comes the barrage attack. Comes up, it leaves a little circle on the ground where it's going to land. Those missiles hit, you don't want to get hit by those. Alright, so I'm back, and now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the advanced features of the light mech. Now you're probably like, whoa, that guy is definitely not the light mech I saw before. That's because this is an elite light mech. He's got a few more features, so I thought I'd do two birds with one stone. But so some of the things that all the light mechs, elite and normal, both have is that when you get close to them, when they're active, they will back away from you and occasionally strafe left or right to try and get a little bit of distance on you. Let me go ahead and try and demonstrate that now without getting killed. So you just backing away, and then he's trying to strafe to get some more distance. It also helps if you're like bum rushing 2 or 3 of them at once. They'll strafe in different directions usually, just because it's just random. So they'll strafe in random directions, and then that means that even if you are chasing down one of them, then the other 2 will be behind you now. We found this really helped out a lot because some players with the rocket launcher and the shotgun would get up close and in their face, and then, you know, you just had a group of them with a shotgun and a rocket launcher, so you could easily take them out. So this kind of offset that a little bit. The other thing that they do, I'm going to need the rocket launcher to show you, so we get some distance. Now, the first time we made the game, we noticed that they just charge towards you, so if I fire a rocket at them, that could have just hit him right in the face. That would have been boring, because every time that we played the game with that mode in, the players are like, well, why would I use any other gun? The enemies never dodge the rockets, and the rockets kill them in one shot, so I'm just going to always use the rocket launcher and get ammo for it. Well, we made them strafe, as you saw, out of the way of the rocket, which is essentially, you know, I just used some vector math to figure out, alright, the rocket's in front of me. They only dodge, by the way, when the rocket's in front of them. If you actually manage to sneak up on an enemy mech and get them from behind, they won't realize you're there. But when the rocket is in front of them, the rocket will enter their, like, sphere of influence, and they'll be like, alright, I need to dodge this rocket. So they'll figure out which way the rocket's going, figure out its path, and then dodge in the direction that will get them away from the rocket quickest. That way you don't have them, like, trying to dodge away from a rocket and then running into it accidentally or something. But when we did that, then players stopped using the rocket launcher because, well, they could never hit them. The enemies always dodge the rockets. And we went through some iterations after that trying to offset this problem. We're like, alright, the solution must fall somewhere between. I did a lot of different random behaviors where I'd have them randomly determine based on different things if they're going to dodge or not. But the problem was the player never really understood, well, why did he dodge one time and not the other time? The solution actually came from one of my classmates. He was working on another game, and we were just talking over lunch one day, and he came up, and I was talking to him, and I said, hey man, here's our situation, here's what we're doing. And he's like, oh, okay, I see what you're trying to do. How about this? How about you have them always strafe, but when they strafe, put some kind of random decision somehow in there that'll make them sometimes strafe successfully or not strafe successfully. So let's see if I can show off what that means. Oh, by the way, they cloak. Yeah, sometimes when they're repositioning, the enemies will cloak, so you lose sight of them. And then when they reach their destination, they'll uncloak. Alright, so let's try and fire a couple rockets at him. Alright, he got out of the way, but if you notice, he almost didn't make it out of the way. Let's see what happens now. Still made it out of the way. So most of the time, it's pretty successful. Especially if you're just shooting, like I am, directly at him. So let's see what happens when I try to shoot at his feet or something. took a little bit of damage there as if he didn't strafe fully out of the way. So there you saw that while he did strafe away from it, he didn't get out of its detonation radius. And he can't. He can strafe far enough to get out of its detonation radius. What's happening is when you fire the rocket at an enemy mech, the enemy mech will start strafing, but he'll initialize a very, very short timer. Like less than like half of a second. And it's a random amount. And what happens is, he'll strafe, but he might not start strafing until it's too late. Like, so he might start strafing just as the rocket's about to hit him, and by that time, it's game over for him. Especially if you're firing at the ground, like near his feet or something. Then he's only going to get out of the damage radius a little bit, and he's still going to take some amount of damage. This really worked well with players, like immediately resonated with them. They see that the enemy will always try to strafe the rocket if the enemy sees the rocket, but at the same time, it's like, ha, but I got you. Like, players don't really pick up on what's going on. They just know that, well, he tried, but I'm better than him, so I got him. Which in AI, I'm sure many of you that have done AI will find we're always dumbing down the AI so the player thinks that they're better than them. Yeah, so it was a really fun feature to work on. I was really happy with the outcome. I thanked my classmate Dylan. I think it's Dylan Higby, and turned out pretty well.